So we're going to talk about what we've accomplished in the last year, and we're going to talk about where we're headed. First, I'm going to go way back. All right, that is not me, but it is reminiscent of back when I was a young man growing up. This is what it looked like when you were at home and you wanted to talk with your girlfriend on the phone. You'd take that phone cord and you'd stretch it all the way across the room, try and hide in a corner and get privacy. That's what talking to your girlfriend looked like. Today, this is what my wife accuses me of doing, talking to my girlfriend on the phone. The world has changed a lot, and this last year has been incredible for technology change. So we will talk a bit more about AI. It's inescapable, and how it's changing the way that we work, the way that we live, and what that means for analyst relations. To put it in context, anybody recognize this picture? This is an application called Pointcast. This came out in the 90s. It was one of the first internet mass media applications. You would actually download it on your machine, and it would push content to you during the day. It was revolutionary. I can see the news. I can see sports, stock prices in real time. It was incredible. Eventually, it got banned from corporate networks because it crashed networks taking up too much bandwidth. What came next was the launch of the browser. And when browsers went mainstream, this meant I can now pull whatever I'm actually interested in at any time. Transformative to the way that we work and the way we live. Who had one of these buzzing on their hip? Or we thought it was buzzing, but it wasn't even there. We started to develop tremors. The BlackBerry pager. Now my corporate email securely, my calendar with me wherever I go, transforming the way we work. Another big transformation. Lastly, not just the phone, but the iPhone 3 in this case, a platform where anybody can build any application. Now it truly unlocks all the possibilities of how we work and how we live, transformative to our daily lives. So if I skip forward to today, these tools are transformative today. It's that kind of change where the way we work and the way we live has changed forever. And in this case, this is a chart of weekly active users for ChatGPT. And over the course of 2.5 years, has grown in this chart to 700 million. If we updated the chart for today, it's at about 800 million weekly active users. And that's just one tool, that's ChatGPT. The world is changing very quickly. To put it in context, this is not weekly active users. This is ad revenue from companies that are major players, recognized names today. And you can see as a proxy over the course of 5, 10, 15, or 20 or more years to see that kind of steep growth, we've seen an acceleration in the pace of change with this current revolution. But there are some caution flags. Has anybody seen this chart? Anybody recognize this? This is pulled from the Wall Street Journal. This is a chart of what they call circular or round-trip revenue deals. So this is an example between the major tech players who are helping shape the economy today, where somebody says, well, I'll buy $100 billion of your chips if you buy $100 billion of my AI or my compute. And we have these $100 billion deals circulating around, which are really premised on future demand. It doesn't exist today, but we're planning for what we see coming ahead. It's foreseeable, but it's not real yet today, and some have cautioned this is a sign of a potential bubble. There's some risk. Another sign of caution, as we all know, these tools can make mistakes. And in fact, they tell us every time you use these tools, I make mistakes, be careful. And in fact, I asked Claude, what's the biggest mistake you ever made? And my engineers in the back will be laughing at me like, Howard, that's not how it works. I know that's not how it works. Claude said, I don't experience mistakes in the way you might, which maybe is, again, me having a conversation with my girlfriend. I don't know. But the tools are imperfect. We all know this. And in fact, Forrester predicted that ungoverned Gen AI in commercial apps will cost B2B companies more than $10 billion, either through investments that didn't pan out or security breaches that happen, other risks that occur because of these tools. So it's transformational, but it's also still a risky time. All right, so let's put this in context. This is a version of a hype cycle. It's called a digital infrastructure evolution life cycle. Hat tip to my friend Avi, who's in the blockchain space, who created this in that context. But the idea was, if you think about components of digital infrastructure, like when internet and e-commerce launched, what did we all say back then? We said, oh my gosh, retail shopping is dead. Nobody's going to go to a store and buy anymore. Is that what happened? No, that's not what happened. Retail shopping is very much alive and well, but it is changed forever, and our buying behavior has changed forever. When mobile devices happened, oh, we'll never use traditional computing platforms for interfaces anymore. That's not what happened. But we do now build mobile first, and it has changed our lives forever. And I do think that's a relevant context for where we are right now with these AI tools, which our lives are changed forever, for sure. And they will become ubiquitous in all the things we do. But I do not think it means it's the end of entry-level jobs. I do not think it means it's the end of SaaS applications as we know it. We will adapt as these tools evolve. So what does this mean for analyst relations? That's what we're here to talk about. These are stock charts for Gartner and Forrester. They have fallen precipitously, which leads me to the point in the presentation where I answer the question that absolutely nobody has asked, which is, what do Guns N' Roses have to do with analyst relations? I have seen in the last 6 months, as many of you have, a tremendous appetite for destruction, meaning Gartner's dead, they finally got it coming to them, they're too old, too slow, too big, too backward, too mean, they don't get it. That's what I felt, and I don't think that's right. Are they ripe for destruction? No, not so fast. Are they ripe for disruption? Is our whole industry ripe for disruption? Yes, I do believe so, and we're seeing that. We've seen many firms rolling out AI products, different ways to interact with intellectual property. Futurum has rolled out a whole new evaluative model, which is AI first. There is lots of innovation happening, lots of disruption happening, and that has implication for all of us and the work that we do. The big question for me, and the implication for our AR practice, is how radically and how quickly do end user buying decisions change in the age of Gen AI? Why would their end user buying decisions change? I think most of us know this, but one, information is now readily available that was not available before. So if you're using review sites or other sources of information, I can now understand people's interaction with the tools that I might want to buy and how they feel about it. The pace of change, it's incredible. If you are building software product, the capabilities that you can roll out, not quarter by quarter or month by week, an incredible pace of change. A traditional evaluative report cycle can't possibly keep pace with what's happening in the marketplace. And all of this is rocket fueled by Gen AI, where anybody can now access all this information instantly and start to make decisions. Lisa talked about this yesterday. So she shared this very elaborate prompt that she had written and executed in Perplexity, and then a very thoughtful, detailed response from the AI, including tables, weighted information, recommendations, all of this in the hands of the end user buyer making a decision. And as she pointed out, there's no Gartner MQ results in there. There's no Forrester Wave results in there. There are some other analyst information that can be there. It's mostly publicly available information. And that's good and bad. I have a slightly different take than she did. So one, it does have big implication for us and what we do, and I'll talk about that in a minute. On the other hand, if you look through the detailed citations, and I did this in all the major tools, most of the sources that are fueling these tables, this scoring, is actually all of your websites. It's your marketing material. So it's sourcing the vendors and what they say about their own products, and then combining all that information and coming up with a rating. So if I'm an end user, do I immediately accept this information? I'm not so sure. In fact, Trust Radius said 90% of B2B buyers click through to sources featured in AI overviews. So I'm going to look through that information as a buyer, and I'm going to say, do I trust these sources to help me make this buying decision? And in some cases, I think the answer will be yes. And in some cases, I think people will pause and think about all the information they need to make an important buying decision. And very much will continue to rely on analysts in appropriate situations. So what does this mean for us? Lisa talked about this yesterday. There are things we can do within analyst relations and as part of a broader organization to help maximize our opportunity of being seen and being referenced in these results. So number one, if analysts are talking about you, amplify that, socialize that. If you hear them saying positive things, find ways to engage that in multiple places because the tools want to see multiple references cited for information. And number two, prioritize coverage quantity. Because we're leveraging AI to be able to do more things more quickly and hopefully free up some of our time, one of the things we've seen examples of is that I can now actually do more reports because I can automate the reports I take on. And if I'm working with a tier 2 or tier 3 analyst and getting more reputable cited coverage of my product, I'm going to show up better. Number three, if you're working with an analyst where you can influence the way the outcome is produced, for example, if you're commissioning a report with an analyst firm, put it in a format that you know is going to be received well by the LLM. So for example, a question and answer format. If you question and answer pair the content that comes out from an analyst paper, it makes it very easy for the LLM to read and say, well, somebody in the chat just asked me a question and I see that exact question in this referenceable material. Let me provide that answer as a cited piece of material. That's going to help you show up better in the LLM. Lastly, things are changing very quickly. How the models work, how the algorithms work, how they prioritize, how they present. You can't just create a playbook today and run it. You're going to have to be very flexible and adaptable moving forward. Let me shift to another way that AI is helping us in analyst relations, and that's in RFI automation. So what is this? This is using Gen AI to help respond to evaluative report RFIs. Taking in an RFI, deconstructing it, and responding to it in a highly accurate, effective, efficient way. As this evolved over the last year, the ability to take this new Gen AI and layer it onto an RFP response tool, we went out and surveyed our customers. And we asked our customers, what is most important to you when thinking about tools to use for RFI automation? And the way to read this chart is the yellow, green bars. Those are the most important, and the blue bars are the second most important priorities. What we heard from our customers was the accuracy of the answers is most important. It has to be right. But very closely behind that, we heard it needs to comply with my AI governance in my company, and it needs to comply with my data and security implications in my company. And I need to really understand, is this saving me time? And how much effort is it going to take to get it up and running? And how much effort is it going to take to maintain over time? And what we learned from all of that is there's no one tool or one approach or one answer that's going to work for a majority of companies. You need to be flexible to meet the needs of your customers, which is what we had in mind when we created and rolled out our RFI Accelerator offering. The RFI Accelerator offering is a services-led offering by our services agency to help you pick the right tool based upon our experience in having worked with all the major third-party tools like Responsive, Lupio, Tribble, Conveyor, working with the LLMs directly, and understanding the right process and the right prompts to get maximum results. In our RFI Accelerator offering, which is very approachable, by the way, for just $10,000, we can help a company pick the right tool using our calculator and decision matrix, run through a process, use our prompt library to understand how to get the most out of the tools at every stage of the process, and actually run through your first RFI with you. We'll train you how to do this process on your own, or you can continue to work with us moving forward. Let me give you one example that we talked about yesterday. I'm not sure if Pete's in the room today from FICO. Pete and FICO were working on their first MQ. And so they wanted to understand, A, where might I end up in this MQ? And B, how can I leverage these tools to accelerate and automate and save time and get a better outcome? So working with our AR agency, the first thing we did with Pete, which we do with a lot of customers, is, hey, you might have one of these tools already in your organization. And in fact, FICO did. They were using Responsive in their sales organization. And many of you in your companies may also have these tools available to you in other parts of your organization. So Pete went to the sales team, got access to the Responsive tool, and used it to create a first draft of a response to the MQ. Also understood that these tools have some complexity to them, understanding them, getting them set up, using them, and decided not to continue to use that tool for the rest of the process. And in fact, we shipped it over and used ChatGPT. And we didn't use the tool just to generate draft responses. That was great, but there's a lot more that you can do with these tools. So we took the draft responses and then as a whole evaluated, does this seem complete? Are we consistent in our tone? Are there any gaps? We went and compared it actually to the criteria and said, are there any specific criteria that were called out that we haven't fully answered or we think are weak or we can improve? We took the answers and looked at it from a competitive lens. How are our competitors going to shape up and how does that compare to how we're going to shape up? All of these activities led to us producing a higher quality, more complete product at the end of the day, both saving time, but also getting greater clarity on the output that we want to deliver. And we're using AI in other ways in our agency as well. So in addition to just RFI automation, with Dialpad had lost track a little bit of exactly what are the things I have available to me in my analyst firm contracts. We collected all that information, centralized it using an AI tool, and made sure that we were taking advantage of the things that were available to us in our contracts. For Lenovo, we helped to expand the number of RFIs we could respond to using AI tools. And for CI&T, we actually created a utilization tracking tool using AI to make sure that for the things available to us, we were fully maximizing our usage of those things in the contract. All right, so AI, we've talked a lot about that. AI is a revolutionary generational leap in technology. And yet, our goal as AR professionals remains as it has been, which is driving business impact.